In the unforgiving expanse of the northern wilderness, winter's icy grip had tightened with each passing hour. The sky, a brooding slate gray, threatened to unleash another storm, and the wind cut through the thick layers of clothing like a razor. A small group of hikers, bundled against the cold, navigated cautiously through the dense forest, their breath rising in misty clouds as they moved. Their boots crunched in the fresh snow that blanketed the ground, muffling the usual sounds of the forest and lending the scene an eerie stillness. Among them was Sarah, a young woman with determined eyes scanning the landscape ahead, and Mark, a sturdy man whose steady pace kept the group moving forward despite the harshness of the weather. Behind them trailed two others, Lisa and Tom, their faces flushed from exertion and cold. They had set out that morning with enthusiasm, seeking the solace only the wilderness could offer. But as the hours passed, the reality of the winter's severity began to weigh heavily on their spirits. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. Suddenly, Lisa's voice broke the silence, sharp and urgent. "Wait, over here." She pointed ahead, where a small shape lay partially covered by snow near the base of a towering pine. The group hurried toward the spot, hearts quickening with a mixture of concern and curiosity. As they drew closer, the outline became unmistakably clear. A dog, sprawled on the frozen ground, its fur matted and dusted with snowflakes. The animal was in a pitiful state. Its ribs showed beneath a coat that was once thick but now appeared ragged and dirty. The dog's eyes fluttered weakly, barely opening to acknowledge the approaching strangers before closing again. It whimpered softly, a sound that pierced the cold stillness like a fragile plea for help. Mark knelt beside the dog, his gloved hands moving carefully to check for injuries. "It's hurt and freezing," he murmured, glancing up at the rest of the group. "We need to get it warm, fast." Sarah nodded, her breath hitching as she crouched alongside Mark. "But where?" "We're miles from the nearest cabin, and the storm's supposed to hit hard tonight." Before anyone could answer, a figure emerged through the trees, moving with a purposeful stride that seemed almost unnatural in this bleak wilderness. The man was tall, his broad shoulders and lean frame wrapped in a weathered jacket and tactical gear that hinted at a life lived on the edge. His eyes, sharp and assessing, took in the scene with a calm intensity. "I saw the group from a distance," he said, his voice low but steady. "Looks like you found someone in trouble." He knelt beside the dog, his hands skilled and sure as he examined the animal's condition. "This one doesn't have much time." The group exchanged glances, a mix of relief and curiosity stirring among them. "Who are you?" Lisa asked, her voice tentative but hopeful. The man straightened, offering a faint smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Name's Logan Pierce. I'm a Navy SEAL, recently retired. I spend a lot of time out here." He looked back down at the dog. "You're lucky I showed up when I did." Sarah swallowed hard, watching as Logan's hands worked swiftly to clear snow from the dog's fur and assess its breathing. "Can you help it?" Logan nodded, his expression resolute. "I'll do everything I can." He glanced at the group. "We need shelter, warmth, and some kind of emergency care. The dog's hypothermic and probably injured." Mark rose, his brows furrowed with concern. "We don't have any medical gear, just what we brought for ourselves." "That's okay. We'll improvise," Logan replied. "First, let's get it out of the wind." He motioned for them to follow as he stood and scanned the surroundings. "There's a small ravine a few hundred yards that might be shielded from the wind. We can build a shelter there." The group moved quickly, carrying the dog between them as Logan led the way. The snow crunched beneath their feet, the cold biting deeper with every step. But the presence of this stranger infused them with a renewed sense of hope. They reached the ravine, where towering boulders and thick evergreens created a natural barrier against the biting wind. Here, the snow was less disturbed, and the air felt marginally warmer. Logan set the dog gently on the ground and began instructing the group. "We'll use branches and any extra clothing to build insulation. We need to trap heat and keep the wind out." His voice was calm but commanding, each word carrying the weight of experience. Sarah and Lisa gathered what they could: twigs, pine needles, anything dry enough to help, while Mark and Tom tore off extra layers to wrap the dog. Logan moved with practiced efficiency, his hands steady as he arranged a crude but effective windbreak against the ravine's wall. As they worked, Logan's gaze remained fixed on the dog, who was stirring faintly now, its breath shallow but more regular. The hikers watched, their own exhaustion momentarily forgotten, drawn into the urgency of the rescue. When the shelter was complete, Logan produced a small first aid kit from his pack. "I'm not a vet, but I've had some medical training," he said, opening the kit to reveal bandages, antiseptics, and other supplies. "We'll clean and dress any wounds, then keep the dog warm until we can get proper help." Sarah hesitated, then reached out to help as Logan gently cleaned a deep gash on the dog's side. The animal whimpered softly, but didn't resist, its trust in these strangers growing despite its pain. The cold was relentless outside, but inside their makeshift shelter, a fragile bubble of hope began to form. The wind howled beyond the trees, the first flakes of a new snowstorm beginning to fall. The group huddled close, sharing body heat and quiet words of encouragement. Logan's presence was a steady anchor amidst the growing storm, his steady hands and calm demeanor inspiring confidence. Lisa looked up at him, eyes wide with gratitude. "How did you end up out here? You don't look like someone who just happened to be hiking in this weather." Logan's gaze drifted toward the darkening forest. "I've been through a lot. After leaving the SEALs, I needed to find a place to clear my head. This wilderness, it's harsh, but honest. It doesn't hide anything. I came searching for peace, I guess." Sarah nodded slowly, understanding in her eyes. "And now you're here, helping this dog who might not have made it otherwise." Logan smiled faintly. "Sometimes peace means stepping up when someone or something needs you." The group fell into a quiet rhythm, tending to the dog and preparing for the long night ahead. Outside, the storm gathered strength, but inside their shelter, the fragile warmth of compassion burned bright. The dog's breathing steadied, a small victory in the face of nature's relentless challenge. As the first heavy snowflakes settled on the branches above, Logan's mind already raced ahead, planning the next steps. They would need to find help before the storm trapped them all. But for now, in this small refuge carved out of the wilderness, they had bought the dog a chance born from the unexpected meeting of strangers, bound by a shared purpose. The night was still young, and the battle against the cold had only just begun. Yet in this frozen wilderness, hope flickered with every breath, carried on the shoulders of a former SEAL who had found a new mission in the care of a wounded dog and the kindness of strangers. The fire crackled softly, its warm glow casting long shadows against the snow-dusted trees that ringed their makeshift shelter. Inside the fragile enclosure of branches and clothing, the air was thick with a mingled scents of pine, damp earth, and the faint metallic tang of antiseptic. The dog lay curled on a bed of pine needles and blankets, hastily gathered by Sarah and Lisa. its breathing steadier now, but still shallow and uneven. Logan knelt nearby, his eyes never straying far from the animal as he worked carefully to stabilize the wounds, his hands moving with the quiet confidence of someone who had long mastered the art of survival. The group had settled reluctantly into a tense stillness, each of them wrestling with the cold gnawing at their fingers and the uncertainty looming over the dog's fate. Outside, the wind howled through the trees like a restless spirit, a reminder of the merciless environment they faced. But within, Logan's presence was a steadying force, a beacon of calm amidst the growing storm. "Logan?" Sarah ventured, breaking the silence, with a tentative voice. "How did you learn to do all this? You're different from anyone I've ever met." Logan looked up, his dark eyes reflecting the firelight as a faint smile touched his lips. "I was trained to handle situations like this," he said simply. "Not just combat, but survival. First aid, navigation, leadership. Being a Navy SEAL means being ready for anything, anywhere." He paused, his gaze drifting to the dog, then back to the group. "I spent years in some of the toughest environments on the planet. Desert heat, jungle humidity, freezing mountains. It's all about staying calm, assessing the situation, and acting decisively." Mark shifted on his heels, the firelight illuminating the calluses on his hands. But why leave all that behind? Most people wouldn't walk away from something like that. Logan's smile faded into something more somber. "I had my reasons." He looked away briefly, then met their eyes again, steady and unflinching. The missions, the danger, they took their toll. Lost friends, hard choices. I needed peace, a place to heal. The wilderness offers that in its own way. Sarah nodded slowly, sensing the weight behind his words. "And now you're out here, helping a dog you just found in the snow." "That's right." Logan's voice was quiet but resolute. "Sometimes, helping one life can be the start of healing a lot more." Lisa leaned forward, her breath visible in the cold air. "You said you spend a lot of time out here. What's it like, living in the wild like this?" Logan chuckled softly, the sound low and warm. "It's a different kind of discipline. No orders, no schedules, just nature's rules. You learn to read the land, the weather, the signs animals give you. It's about respect and patience, and knowing your limits." He reached into his pack and pulled out a well-worn notebook, its leather cover frayed at the edges. "I keep notes, maps, observations, survival tips. Helps me stay sharp and prepared." Mark's curiosity got the better of him. "You're not just wandering out here for peace, are you? You're still training? Still ready?" Logan's eyes flickered with a hint of the old warrior beneath the calm exterior. "You never really stop being ready. But out here, it's not about combat. It's about endurance, mental and physical. Every day is a test." Sarah watched him closely, noticing the subtle tension in his posture, the way his eyes scanned the tree line even as he spoke of peace. "Does it ever get to you? The memories?" He hesitated, then nodded. "Sometimes. The past is heavy, but being in nature helps me carry it better. It's a constant reminder that life goes on, that there's still good worth fighting for." Lisa wrapped her arms around herself, shivering despite the shelter and fire. "You must be pretty tough to handle all that." "I've had to be," Logan admitted, his voice steady but tinged with a hint of vulnerability. "It's not just physical toughness, it's mental. The ability to keep going when everything's against you." The dog stirred again, a soft whimper escaping its lips. Logan reached down, gently stroking its head. "See? It's fighting too." Sarah smiled faintly, the warmth in her chest growing despite the cold. "You've given it a chance, Logan. We all owe you for that." He shook his head, brushing snow from his sleeve. "We owe each other. Out here, it's never just one person. It's a team effort. Survival depends on it." Mark glanced toward the darkening sky, the first heavy flakes of snow swirling more insistently around the shelter. "How long have you been out here, really?" "Since I left the service about a year ago," Logan replied. "Spent the first few months just wandering, figuring out where I fit. This region felt right, remote, challenging, but beautiful." The group absorbed his words, the firelight flickering over their faces as the storm began to settle in for the night. Outside, the forest seemed to lean in, the rustling trees a constant reminder of the world beyond their fragile refuge. Sarah's voice was soft, but curious. "Do you miss it? The brotherhood? The missions?" Logan's gaze was distant for a moment, then resolute. "Sometimes. But I've found a different kind of connection here. With the land, with people like you, with moments like this. It's quieter, but just as meaningful." Lisa smiled, her eyes bright despite the fatigue. "You don't strike me as a quiet man." He laughed, a rich sound that seemed to warm the cold air. "Maybe not. But out here, I've learned to listen more than I speak." Mark nodded, respect evident in his tone. "That's something we could all use, especially when things get tough." Logan's expression grew serious again. "Tough is the norm out here, but that's why you prepare, why you trust each other, and why you never give up." The dog whimpered softly once more, drawing all their attention. Logan leaned closer, his voice gentle. "Rest now. We're going to get you through this." Sarah watched him, a newfound admiration blooming in her heart. Here was a man who had faced unimaginable challenges and still carried a fierce compassion beneath his hardened exterior. A man who understood pain and resilience in equal measure. As the wind picked up again, sending snow swirling in restless patterns beyond their shelter, Logan settled back on his heels, eyes scanning the horizon. The group fell into a comfortable silence, each lost in thoughts stirred by the former SEAL's story and the fragile hope cradled within their hands. In this remote corner of the world, surrounded by the harsh beauty of winter, Logan Pierce was more than a stranger. He was a guardian, a healer, and a reminder that even in the coldest, darkest places, strength and kindness could endure. The night deepened, and the fire's glow flickered steady, a small island of warmth in the vast wilderness. Logan's story had only begun to unfold, but already it was clear that his journey, like the dog's survival, would be one forged by courage, compassion, and an unyielding will to endure. The snowstorm's fury had not abated by dawn. Instead, it intensified, blanketing the forest in a thick, unforgiving white that swallowed the world beyond their fragile shelter. The wind whipped fiercely through the trees, bending branches and sending flurries swirling in chaotic patterns. The sky was an endless expanse of gray, a heavy curtain that promised no reprieve from the harsh elements. Inside their makeshift refuge, the group huddled close, faces pale from cold and worry, eyes darting between the worsening weather and the fragile form of the dog lying on the bed of pine needles. Logan knelt beside the animal, his breath misting in the chill air as he carefully adjusted the layers of clothing wrapped around it. The dog's breathing was shallow, each rise and fall of its chest a fragile thread in the battle against hypothermia. Its fur, matted and damp, offered little protection against the biting cold that had seeped into its bones. The urgency in Logan's eyes was unmistakable. Time was slipping through their fingers, and the storm was an unrelenting adversary. Sarah pressed her gloved hand against the dog's side, feeling the faint warmth beneath the layers. "It's getting worse," she whispered, voice edged with fear. "I don't think it's going to hold out much longer." Mark tightened his jaw, scanning the snow-covered trees through the shelter's opening. "We're trapped. We can't move it until the storm lets up, or we risk losing it." Lisa shivered despite her layers, wrapping her arms tighter around herself. "What if the storm doesn't stop? What then?" Logan's gaze hardened with resolve. "Then we have to be smarter. Faster. We can't wait for perfect conditions. The dog needs help now." He stood slowly, brushing snow from his sleeves, and looked over the group. "We're facing a race against time and the weather. The cold is killing it, and every minute counts." Sarah's eyes locked onto his, searching for some reassurance. "What can we do? How do we save it?" Logan paced briefly, his mind calculating with military precision. "We need to find a way to get the dog to a veterinarian. There's a ranger station about 5 miles east. That's the closest place with any kind of emergency aid." Mark frowned. 5 miles in this storm? That's suicide. "It's a risk," Logan admitted. "But staying here means certain death for the dog. We have to try." Lisa's voice trembled. "But what about us? What if someone gets lost or worse?" Logan's eyes softened briefly. "I won't let that happen. I've been through worse conditions than this. I know how to navigate, and I won't leave anyone behind." The group exchanged nervous glances, caught between fear and hope. Logan's confidence was a lifeline, but the reality of the storm's relentlessness pressed down like a weight. Sarah stepped forward, determination flaring in her gaze. "Then we'll help you. We can't just sit here and watch it die." Logan nodded, appreciating the resolve. "Good. We'll move as a team. But first, we have to prepare." He began instructing them on how to bundle the dog securely for travel, emphasizing the importance of keeping it insulated and protected from the wind. "We'll use whatever extra clothing and blankets we have to make a stretcher. Something light enough to carry, but sturdy enough to hold." Mark tore off his outer jacket, folding it carefully as Logan demonstrated how to create a makeshift harness from paracord and strips of fabric. Lisa and Sarah gathered supplies, their hands moving quickly despite the cold and trembling. As they worked, Logan's mind was already mapping the treacherous route ahead. Steep inclines, icy patches, dense thickets, all made more dangerous by the snowdrifts and near-zero visibility. The storm had erased familiar landmarks, turning the forest into an indistinguishable maze. "Navigation will be tricky," Logan warned, pulling a compass from his jacket pocket. "We'll rely on this and my sense of direction. Stay close, follow my lead, and keep communicating." Sarah swallowed her fear but nodded firmly. "We trust you." The dog, sensing the flurry of activity, stirred weakly, its eyes flickering open to meet Logan's steady gaze. He knelt low, whispering soothing words. "Hang on, buddy. We're going to get you help." The group hoisted the makeshift stretcher carefully, balancing the fragile weight between them. Every movement was measured, cautious, as if the slightest jostle might shatter the fragile thread of life they carried. The cold bit into their exposed skin, and the wind drove snow into their faces, but their focus never wavered. Logan led the way, his pace steady and deliberate despite the treacherous footing. His eyes constantly scanned the environment, reading subtle changes in the snow, marking distant shapes, and recalibrating their path with each step. Behind him, the group followed in single file. Voices hushed to avoid wasting energy, breaths steady despite the chill. Hours passed with agonizing slowness. The storm's howl was a constant companion, a relentless force that threatened to overwhelm their senses. Visibility dropped to mere feet, and the cold seeped into their bones, numbing fingers and toes despite their careful layering. At one point, Lisa stumbled on a hidden root, nearly losing her footing. Logan reached back instantly, steadying her with a firm grip. "Careful," he warned. "Every step counts." Sarah's legs burned with fatigue, but she pushed on, driven by the dog's fragile life and Logan's unwavering determination. "How much farther?" she asked, voice strained. "Not far," Logan replied, though even he sounded uncertain. The forest was a maze of white, and landmarks were obscured. "We're close. Just a little longer." As they pressed forward, the dog's breathing grew more labored, a faint whimper escaping its lips. Logan's heart clenched. "We have to hurry," he urged. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the storm, a tree limb breaking under the weight of snow, sending a shower of flakes and debris crashing nearby. The group froze, tension soaring. "Keep moving," Logan commanded, voice low but firm. "Don't stop now." The dog's fragile pulse was a constant reminder of the stakes. Every breath they drew was a battle against the elements and time itself. After what felt like an eternity, the dense forest began to thin, and through the swirling snow, a faint glow appeared, a flicker of light against the bleakness. Logan's eyes lit up with relief. "That's it, the ranger station." The group quickened their pace, fatigue forgotten in the surge of hope. The small wooden building stood resolute against the storm, its windows glowing warmly, a sanctuary in the frozen wilderness. Mark knocked urgently on the door, and moments later, a ranger appeared, bundled against the cold, but alert. Upon seeing the dog, her expression shifted instantly to concern. "We've been expecting someone. What happened out there?" Logan explained quickly, his military-trained mind switching seamlessly into briefing mode. The ranger nodded, motioning them inside where warmth and safety awaited. As they settled the dog onto a heated mat, the group finally allowed themselves to exhale. The immediate danger had passed, but the battle for the dog's life was far from over. Logan's gaze swept the room, eyes meeting those of Sarah, Lisa, and Mark. "We did what we could," he said quietly. "Now it's up to them." Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the ranger station, a fragile hope took root. A promise that even in the harshest conditions, compassion and courage could carve a path toward survival. The warmth inside the ranger station was a stark contrast to the relentless cold and howling storm outside. The small room was lit by a flickering lantern and a wood stove that cast dancing shadows on the worn walls. The scent of pine smoke mingled with antiseptic as the group settled in, exhaustion pressing heavily on their limbs. The dog lay quietly on a padded cot, wrapped in thick blankets, its breathing still shallow but steady, a fragile victory in a battle far from over. Logan stood near the dog, his posture relaxed yet alert, eyes scanning the animal's chest as it rose and fell with each breath. He glanced back at the hikers, Sarah, Mark, Lisa, and Tom, who sat silently on battered chairs, their faces pale but relieved. The weight of the ordeal hung heavily in the room. But Logan's calm, commanding presence seemed to steady the fragile equilibrium. "This is a good place to regroup," Logan said, his voice low but filled with quiet authority. "We've done everything we can for now. The vet should be able to give the dog proper care soon." Sarah nodded, her hands clenched tightly in her lap. "Thank you, Logan. I don't know what we would have done without you." He gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "It's what anyone would do. It's about acting when it matters." Lisa shifted uneasily, her eyes darting toward the window where snow swirled incessantly. How did you stay so calm out there? When I was falling apart, you never faltered." Logan's gaze softened, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his features before he masked it with a faint smile. Years of training. But it's more than that. It's about focus. Keeping your mind on the mission, no matter what. He moved over to a small table, pulling out a well-worn first aid manual and flipping through the pages with practiced fingers. In situations like this, you don't have the luxury of panic. You assess, prioritize, and act. Every second counts. Mark, still rubbing his sore shoulders, leaned forward. "Sounds like you've been through a lot." Logan's eyes darkened with memories. "I have. The SEAL teams are about precision and resilience. You learn how to manage chaos, to lead when everything's falling apart." Sarah's curiosity overcame her hesitation. "What made you leave all that behind?" He paused, looking toward the dog now resting more peacefully. "Sometimes the battles you fight aren't on the battlefield. I lost people I cared about, things I can't forget. I needed to find a way back to myself." The room fell quiet. The only sound the crackle of the stove and the soft whimpers from the dog. Logan's gaze lingered on the animal, his expression a mix of determination and empathy. "I found solace in this wilderness," he continued. "Out here, it's just you and nature. No politics, no orders, just survival and respect. It's a harsh teacher, but an honest one." Lisa tilted her head, intrigued. "Do you live out here all year?" "Mostly," he replied, folding the manual closed. "I've built a small cabin not far from here. It's simple, but enough. I spend my days hiking, tracking, sometimes volunteering for search and rescue. Keeps me connected." Mark's respect deepened. "Sounds like you've found a new mission." Logan shrugged lightly. "Maybe, or maybe it found me. Helping this dog, it's part of why I'm here." Sarah smiled faintly. "You're more than just a mountain man, aren't you?" He chuckled softly. "No, I'm a man who's been through hell and back. But out here, I get to be more than that. I get to heal." The group absorbed his words, the weight of his experience settling around them like a shared secret. Outside, the storm raged on, but inside the ranger station, a calm resolve grew stronger. Logan moved to the window, peering out into the swirling snow. "We're lucky the storm held long enough for us to get here. The dog's condition was critical, but with prompt care there's hope." Sarah followed his gaze, a flicker of hope kindling in her chest. "What happens now?" "The vet's coming as soon as the road clears," Logan explained. "Until then, we keep the dog warm and stable. I'll stay here and help however I can." Lisa looked toward the dog, her voice gentle. "It's fighting for its life." Logan nodded. "Just like all of us, in one way or another." The group drifted into quiet conversation, sharing stories to pass the time and distract from the cold outside. Logan listened, occasionally offering insights born from his experiences, weaving a tapestry of resilience and survival. As night approached, the ranger station grew colder, the wind's howl seeping through the cracks in the walls. Logan moved to stoke the fire, his movements deliberate and steady. The dog stirred, and he bent down, whispering reassurances. "You're safe now," he said softly. "We'll get you through this." Sarah watched him, admiration deepening. Here was a man shaped by hardship, yet softened by compassion. A man whose strength was as much in his heart as his hands. Mark broke the silence, voice thoughtful. "You ever think about going back? To the SEALs?" Logan shook his head. "That life's done. But what I learned there stays with me. It made me who I am." Lisa smiled. And who you are is someone we're all grateful to have met. The dog's breathing steadied further, a sign of progress that lifted the group's spirits. Logan settled beside the cot, eyes never leaving the animal, his resolve unwavering. Outside, the storm showed signs of abating, the wind's fury lessening to a mournful whisper. Inside, the fragile warmth of hope and human connection held firm. Logan's thoughts turned to the road ahead, not just for the dog, but for himself and these strangers bound by a shared ordeal. The wilderness was unforgiving, but it was also a place of renewal, where scars could heal and new purpose could be found. As the night deepened, Logan remained vigilant, a sentinel in the quiet room. The battle was far from over, but with every breath the dog took, so too did the promise of survival, and the quiet strength of a man who had found his mission anew. The night deepened outside the ranger station, blanketing the wilderness in silence except for the occasional gust of wind rattling the weathered windows. Inside, the fire's warm glow softened the harsh edges of the cold world beyond the walls. Logan sat near the cot where the dog rested, its breathing steadier now, but still fragile. The group had settled into a quiet routine, each absorbing the weight of the ordeal in their own way. Yet beneath the calm surface, Logan's mind churned with memories and reflections, the shadows of a past he rarely shared, now surfacing in the company of strangers who had become unlikely companions. Sarah shifted beside him, breaking the comfortable silence with a gentle question. "Logan, you mentioned losing people. What happened? If you don't mind me asking." Logan's gaze remained fixed on the dog for a moment before he spoke, his voice low but steady. "I've been on missions where the stakes were life and death every second. Sometimes, even when you do everything right, you lose people. Friends, brothers. It leaves a mark you can't erase." The fire flickered, casting dancing shadows across his weathered face. "There was one mission, years ago. We were deep in hostile territory, tasked with extracting a team caught behind enemy lines. It was supposed to be straightforward, but things went sideways fast." Mark leaned in, listening intently. "What happened?" Logan's eyes darkened, the memories sharp and vivid. "An ambush. We were outnumbered and outgunned. I made a call to pull the team back, but not everyone made it out. I lost my best friend that day. I still replay every decision, wondering if I could have done more." Sarah's hand found his, a silent gesture of empathy. "That kind of loss, it changes everything." "It does," Logan admitted. "It makes you question your purpose, your choices." After that, I realized I needed to find a different path, one that didn't revolve around war and death. Lisa, sitting nearby, spoke softly. "Is that why you came here? To find peace?" Logan nodded slowly. "The wilderness doesn't judge. It doesn't care about rank or medals. It's just raw and real. Out here, I could face myself without distraction." He reached into his jacket, pulling out a small, worn photograph. "This is him, my friend Kyle. We grew up together, trained together. Losing him was the hardest thing I've ever faced." The group gathered closer, the photograph passing from hand to hand. A younger Logan and Kyle smiled back at them, their faces full of hope and camaraderie frozen in time. "Why tell us this now?" Sarah asked gently. "Because helping that dog, it reminded me of what Kyle stood for. Loyalty, courage, never giving up. I've been trying to honor that ever since." Mark's voice was quiet but firm. "Sounds like you carry a lot with you." "I do," Logan said, a faint smile breaking through. "But carrying it means I'm still here, still fighting in my own way." The dog stirred, a soft whimper pulling their attention back to the present. Logan leaned down, murmuring reassurances. "You're not alone, little guy. We've got your back." Sarah looked at Logan with renewed understanding. "You've been on a long journey, haven't you?" "Yeah," he answered. "From the chaos of war to the stillness of the forest. It's been a fight for peace as much as survival." Lisa's eyes shone with admiration. "And now you're here, saving lives in a different way." Logan shrugged modestly. "I'm just doing what I can. Sometimes that's enough." The group sat in reflective silence, the fire crackling softly as the storm outside began to wane. Logan's story had unveiled a man shaped by loss but driven by resilience, a warrior seeking redemption in the quiet embrace of nature. As the night wore on, Logan shared more. Tales of missions, the bonds forged in adversity, and the personal battles that linger long after the fighting ends. Each story revealed the layers beneath the tough exterior. A man struggling to reconcile his past with a hope for the future. Sarah found herself drawn to his honesty, sensing a profound strength in vulnerability. "You don't have to carry it all alone," she said softly. "We're here with you." Logan's eyes met hers, gratitude flickering in their depths. "Thank you. That means more than you know." Outside, the storm's fury gave way to a peaceful hush, the snow settling like a soft blanket over the earth. Inside the ranger station, a fragile bond had formed. Between strangers and a man haunted by his past, united by compassion and the shared fight for survival. The dog's breathing grew steadier still, a small but vital sign of hope. Logan reached out, his hand resting gently on its head. "We'll keep fighting. Together." As the fire's glow warmed the room, Logan's thoughts lingered on the road ahead, not just for the dog, but for himself and the new connections forged in the heart of the wilderness. The journey toward healing was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, he felt he was not walking it alone. The first light of dawn filtered weakly through the frost-covered windows of the ranger station, casting a pale glow on the room where Logan sat beside the dog. The night's stillness had been broken only by the occasional hiss of the fire and the fragile breaths of the injured animal. Outside, the storm had not fully passed. A low, persistent wind rattled the shutters, and snowflakes drifted lazily in the cold morning air. The world beyond was a white wilderness, unforgiving and merciless, and Logan felt its weight pressing in on them all. He glanced down at the dog, now resting more peacefully, but still too weak to rise. The signs of hypothermia and injury were clear, and despite their best efforts, Logan knew time was running out. The bleak truth settled in his chest like a stone. Without immediate veterinary care, the dog's chances were slim. Sarah stirred awake on a nearby cot, rubbing her eyes as she took in the dim room. "How's he holding up?" she asked softly, her voice heavy with concern. Logan's reply was grim but measured. "Stable for now, but that could change fast. The cold's done a number on him. We need more help, soon." Mark sat up, pulling his jacket tighter around him. "The storm's still bad out there. Roads are probably impassable." "That's the problem," Logan said, his gaze drifting to the window. "We're trapped until it lets up." Lisa shivered, pulling her blanket closer. "What do we do if help can't come in time?" Logan's jaw tightened. The question hung in the air, stark and unyielding. "We do everything we can to keep him alive until rescue arrives. That means warmth, hydration, and monitoring. But we can't fool ourselves. The situation's critical." The group exchanged worried looks, the weight of helplessness settling in. Logan rose, pacing the small room as he weighed their options. He knew waiting was dangerous, but venturing out in this storm could prove fatal, not just for the dog, but for the group. Suddenly, the howl of the wind outside grew louder, a chilling reminder of nature's unforgiving power. Logan's mind raced, calculating risks and strategies. The dog's life hung in the balance, and every moment counted. "We can't wait passively," he said firmly, stopping to meet their eyes. "I'm going to make a plan to get out there, to find help." Sarah's voice cracked with urgency. "But the storm—" "I've been through worse," Logan interrupted gently. "I know how to move safely in conditions like this. I'll prepare and leave at first light." The group hesitated, fear mingling with hope. Lisa's eyes welled with tears. "Be careful. We need you." Logan nodded solemnly. "I will. I won't let anything happen to any of you or to him." He moved quickly, gathering survival gear from his pack: insulated layers, a sturdy parka, rope, a compass, and emergency rations. Each item was packed with precision, born from years of training and experience. He checked and rechecked, ensuring nothing was overlooked. Sarah approached, placing a steady hand on his arm. "Let me come with you. We can help." Logan shook his head. "No. You need to stay here with the dog and the others. Keep him warm. Watch for changes. That's your mission now." Reluctantly, Sarah stepped back, understanding the gravity of his words. "Promise you'll come back." "I promise," he said, meeting her gaze with unwavering resolve. The group prepared the shelter further, reinforcing insulation and layering blankets over the dog. They brewed hot water to keep warm compresses ready, and Logan instructed them on signs to watch for: changes in breathing, temperature, or consciousness. As the storm continued to rage, the ranger station felt like a fragile island amid an endless sea of white. The dog's whimpers were faint but persistent, a reminder of the urgency that bound them all. Logan stood at the doorway, looking out into the swirling snow. The forest beyond was a maze of white and shadow, each step into it fraught with peril. His mind mapped the route to the nearest ranger station miles away, the only place where help could be summoned. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. The cold bit into his face as he stepped outside, the wind immediately pressing against him like a living force. He paused, letting his senses adjust to the blizzard's fury: the sharp crack of ice beneath his boots, the distant groan of bending trees, the rhythmic pounding of his own heartbeat. Logan moved with purpose, every step deliberate, every movement calculated. He navigated by compass and memory, trusting his training to guide him through the storm's chaos. The cold was relentless, seeping through even the thickest layers, numbing fingers and toes. But he pushed forward, driven by the fragile life depending on him. Behind him, the ranger station grew smaller, a beacon of warmth fading into the white abyss. Sarah's voice echoed faintly through the wind in his mind. "Promise you'll come back." He tightened his grip on the survival pack, focusing on the path ahead. The storm showed no mercy, but neither would he. Hours passed in a blur of wind and snow, each step a battle against exhaustion and disorientation. The forest was merciless, but Logan's resolve was stronger. He paused only briefly to catch his breath and assess his bearings, then pressed on. At one point, a sudden gust nearly knocked him off balance, forcing him to crouch behind a fallen tree for shelter. His breath came in ragged gasps, but his eyes never lost their sharp focus. The dog's fragile life was his anchor, a beacon pulling him through the tempest. As the sun dipped low, casting a dim twilight over the storm, Logan finally glimpsed a faint glow through the trees, the ranger station signaling hope and survival. He pushed harder, muscles burning, lungs screaming, until he reached the door. Inside, the warmth was immediate and enveloping. The ranger on duty greeted him with a mixture of surprise and relief. "We weren't expecting anyone out there in this weather." Logan wasted no time, explaining the situation with military efficiency. "There's an injured dog at the other station. We need medical help, veterinary assistance. The storm's trapping them." The ranger nodded, already reaching for the radio. "We'll get a team ready as soon as the road's clear. It might take some time." Logan's jaw clenched, frustration simmering beneath his calm exterior. Time is what we don't have. The storm outside began to ease, a fragile promise of reprieve. But Logan knew the real battle was just beginning. His mission was clear: get help back to the dog, and fast. As he prepared to return, the weight of the wilderness settled around him, a reminder that survival was never guaranteed. But Logan Pierce was no stranger to impossible odds. He would fight through the storm, driven by a steadfast resolve and the hope that even in the darkest moments, life could be saved. The ranger station's narrow hallway echoed faintly with the crackle of a radio and the hum of emergency equipment, a stark contrast to the howling blizzard raging outside. Logan stood near a cluttered table, spreading out a roughly sketched map of the surrounding wilderness. His fingers traced the jagged lines of trails and the winding river, eyes sharp and calculating beneath his furrowed brow. Every detail mattered: the terrain, the distance, the unforgiving weather that still battered the forest like an unrelenting force. The radio operator, a young woman with a determined expression, tapped a few keys and glanced up. "We've got a small team ready to mobilize as soon as the road's clear enough for snowmobiles. Could be a few hours yet, though." Logan nodded grimly. "We don't have a few hours. I'm going out ahead to scout the fastest route. The dog's condition is critical." The operator's eyes widened. "It's dangerous out there. The storm's only just starting to ease." "I'm aware," Logan replied, voice steady but firm. "If I can find a clear path or a shortcut, it could save precious time." He gathered his gear swiftly: insulated parka, GPS device, climbing knife, emergency beacon, and a compact first aid kit. Each piece was checked meticulously. Failure wasn't an option. The weight of responsibility pressed on him like the cold itself. The ranger on duty approached, concern etched deep in his weathered face. "Logan, you're pushing yourself hard. You sure you want to go alone?" Logan met his gaze without hesitation. "It's not just about me. The dog needs immediate help, and every minute counts. I'll take the risk." The ranger nodded reluctantly. "Be careful. If anything happens, use your beacon." Logan clipped the small device to his jacket, a silent pact between him and those waiting back at the station. Outside, the storm had softened to a steady snowfall. The wind still fierce, but no longer a raging tempest. The forest lay wrapped in white silence, each step a careful negotiation with ice and snow. Logan moved with practiced ease, his boots crunching softly against the powder as he navigated by compass and memory. The map in his mind guided him past familiar landmarks: gnarled pines, frozen streams, rocky outcrops hidden beneath the snow. He paused at intervals, scanning the horizon, listening for sounds masked by the storm's retreat. The cold bit at his face, his breath forming frosty clouds that vanished quickly in the wind. Hours slipped by as he pressed deeper into the wilderness. His muscles burned, but fatigue was a distant thought beneath the urgency driving him forward. The dog's fragile life was a tether, pulling him through the white abyss. At one point, he encountered a fallen tree blocking the main trail, its branches heavy with ice and snow. Logan assessed the obstacle swiftly. The detour around would add precious time, a luxury they didn't have. Drawing his climbing knife, he began the arduous task of clearing a path, each cut deliberate, every movement measured to conserve energy. As the sun dipped lower, casting pale light through the swirling snow, Logan reached a ridge overlooking the valley that cradled the ranger station, where the dog and the others waited. The sight was both reassuring and daunting. The distance was shorter than he feared, but the terrain was treacherous, steep slopes slick with ice and hidden crevices. He pulled out his GPS, confirming coordinates and plotting a safer descent. The decision was clear. Speed was essential, but reckless movement could be fatal. Setting off down the ridge, Logan's focus sharpened. His body moved with the fluid precision of a man honed by countless missions. Every step calculated, every breath controlled. The cold stung his skin, but he barely noticed. His mind was locked on the goal ahead. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed, a snow slab shifting beneath his feet. Instinct kicked in. Logan snapped to a crouch just as a minor avalanche cascaded down the slope beside him, snow and ice roaring past. Heart pounding, he held his position, waiting for the roar to subside. When silence returned, he exhaled slowly, muscles tense but unharmed. The close call was a stark reminder of the precariousness of their situation. Pressing on, he reached the lower forest edge as twilight deepened. The ranger station's glow was faint but unmistakable, a beacon in the growing darkness. Relief surged, tempered by the knowledge that the hardest part was still ahead, guiding the rescue team safely through the storm's aftermath. Logan activated his beacon, sending a clear signal to the station. Moments later, a crackling voice responded over his radio. "Signal received. Team is en route." He smiled grimly. "Good. I'll hold position and guide them in." The forest around him was a maze of shadows and snow-laden branches. Logan's training took over as he marked the safest path with small, visible markers. Bright strips of cloth tied to branches, faint but distinct against the whiteness. Time stretched as he waited, muscles aching but senses sharp. The distant rumble of engines finally reached his ears, a snowmobile team breaking through the snowdrifts, headlights piercing the gloom. Logan signaled with a flare, a vivid red arc cutting through the twilight. The team responded swiftly, navigating toward him with practiced precision. "Logan, we've got your position," the lead ranger called out as they approached. "Ready to move?" He nodded, relief mingling with determination. "Let's move fast. The dog's condition is critical and time's running out." The team followed his lead, moving cautiously but quickly along the marked trail. Logan's voice was calm and authoritative over the radio, guiding them past hazards and treacherous patches. As they neared the ranger station, the storm's remnants continued to fall softly. The world, a quiet white canvas. Logan's heart pounded with anticipation. This was the turning point, the moment where their combined efforts could mean the difference between life and death. Back at the station, Sarah and the others watched anxiously as the radio crackled with updates. Logan's voice was steady, a lifeline bridging the wilderness and safety. "We're almost there," he reported. "Keep the dog warm. We're bringing help." Their hope flickered brighter, fragile but real. The rescue team arrived just as night fully claimed the sky, their presence a surge of warmth and possibility. Logan briefed them quickly, imparting vital information about the dog's condition and the terrain. Together, they prepared to move out, the team ready to brave the snow and cold to save a life. Logan's leadership was the steady pulse beneath the operation, his experience guiding every step. As the rescuers loaded medical supplies and prepared to transport the dog, Logan allowed himself a brief moment of quiet satisfaction. The plan was in motion, hope rekindled in the face of relentless adversity. Outside, the storm's fury had faded into a whisper, the wilderness holding its breath. Inside the ranger station, the fragile promise of survival glowed bright, carried on the shoulders of a man who refused to give up, and a team united by courage and compassion. The night air was bitter cold as Logan and the rescue team moved steadily through the thickening snow, their breath visible in ragged clouds beneath the dim glow of headlamps. The forest, once a silent expanse, now echoed with the crunch of boots and the soft hum of snowmobiles cutting through drifts. The storm had relented, but the remnants of its wrath lingered. Branches weighed down by ice, treacherous patches of ice hidden beneath fresh snow, and a biting wind that whispered warnings through the trees. Logan took point, his eyes sharp and unyielding as he navigated the treacherous terrain. Every step was deliberate, every movement calculated with the precision of a man who had survived far worse. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on his shoulders. The fragile life they carried demanded nothing less than his full focus. Behind him, the rescue team followed closely, their equipment humming with quiet urgency. The dog lay nestled in a specially designed carrier, its breathing shallow but steady, a fragile thread holding on in the grasp of cold and injury. Sarah and the others trailed alongside, their faces pale but resolute, eyes fixed on Logan's steady form. Suddenly, a sharp crack split the night, an ominous sound that shattered the fragile calm. Logan froze, senses flaring. The snow beneath his feet shifted, and a cascade of ice and branches thundered down the slope beside them. Without hesitation, he shouted, "Watch out!" and pushed Sarah aside just as a heavy branch crashed where she had stood moments before. The group scrambled for cover, hearts pounding as the avalanche settled. Logan's voice cut through the chaos, calm but commanding. "Everyone okay? Stay alert. This terrain is unstable." Breathing hard, Sarah nodded, eyes wide with shock. That was too close. Logan scanned the area, then signaled to move forward cautiously. The incident was a stark reminder of the precariousness of their mission, but retreat was not an option. The team pressed on, navigating around the debris and marking the path to guide others safely. Logan's experience was a beacon in the white wilderness, his commands precise and unwavering. As they neared the ranger station where the dog had been found, the group's pace quickened. The sight of the familiar building, bathed in warm light, was a balm against the relentless cold and danger. Inside, the veterinarian awaited, ready and prepared. The medical team sprang into action as the dog was carefully transferred from the carrier to a heated examination table. Logan and Sarah watched anxiously, the weight of the ordeal pressing down in the sterile room. The vet's hands were skilled and sure, assessing injuries, administering fluids, and stabilizing the dog with treatments tailored to its critical condition. Minutes stretched into tense hours as the team worked tirelessly, monitoring vital signs and adjusting care. Outside the windows, the storm finally gave way to a still silence, the forest blanketed in pristine white. Inside, a fragile hope took root as the dog's breathing steadied, color slowly returning to its pale fur. Logan's eyes met Sarah's, a silent exchange of relief and gratitude passing between them. The battle was not over, but the tide had shifted. As the dog rested, Logan allowed himself a moment to breathe, the exhaustion of the past days settling over him like a heavy cloak. Yet beneath the weariness, a spark of determination burned bright. He knew the wilderness held many challenges, but tonight, they had won a crucial fight. The team began preparations for the dog's transport to a veterinary hospital in town, ensuring it would receive the specialized care needed for full recovery. Logan coordinated with the rescuers, his leadership steady and unwavering. Sarah lingered near the dog's side, whispering soft words of comfort. Logan watched her, the bond forged in adversity deepening with every passing moment. Outside, the first rays of dawn pierced the horizon, casting gold over the snow-covered landscape. The storm's fury was behind them, replaced by a quiet promise of new beginnings. Logan stood at the window, gaze sweeping the vast expanse of wilderness. The journey had been harrowing, but the strength of human compassion and resilience had prevailed. As the day broke, he prepared to face whatever came next, knowing that in this wild, unpredictable world, hope was the greatest survival skill of all. The sterile hum of the veterinary clinic was a stark contrast to the wild, snow-laden forest where the dog had been found. Inside the warmth of the treatment room, the air was thick with antiseptic and quiet urgency. Logan stood near the examination table, his eyes never leaving the dog's fragile form as the veterinary team moved with practiced precision. The animal's breathing had stabilized, but its journey toward recovery was just beginning. Sarah lingered nearby, her hands clasped tightly, eyes reflecting a mixture of hope and exhaustion. Mark, Lisa, and Tom sat quietly in the waiting area, the ordeal having drained their energy but not their determination. The bond forged in those harsh days in the wilderness had transformed into a shared resolve to see the dog through this trial. The lead veterinarian, Dr. Matthews, approached Logan with a grave but hopeful expression. The dog's injuries are severe, but with intensive care, there's a good chance for recovery. We'll need to monitor him closely over the next several days. Logan nodded, absorbing the information with the calm focus that had carried him through countless missions. What's the biggest concern? Hypothermia complications, possible internal injuries, and infection risk from the wounds. We're starting antibiotics and supportive therapy immediately, Dr. Matthews explained. He's a fighter, but it's going to be tough. Sarah stepped forward, voice soft but firm. Is there anything we can do to help? Dr. Matthews smiled faintly. Your presence is important. Animals respond to calm, caring voices. Visits and gentle words can aid his healing. Logan glanced around at the group, their faces etched with worry but glowing with hope. We'll be here. As the hours passed, the clinic became a hub of quiet activity. Nurses changed dressings, adjusted IV drips, and recorded vital signs. Logan stayed close, his presence a steadying force amid the clinical environment. The dog's eyes fluttered open occasionally, meeting his gaze with a faint, trusting look. Outside the window, the winter sun cast long shadows, painting the clinic with a soft, golden light. The world outside was still and cold, but inside, life fought tenaciously against the odds. One afternoon, as Logan sat beside the dog, Sarah joined him. It's hard to believe how far he's come, she said, her voice tinged with awe. Logan nodded, a rare smile breaking through his reserved demeanor. He's tough, like all of us. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a nurse carrying a tray of medications and food. The dog sniffed the offerings, then licked carefully, a small but promising sign. Days blurred into nights as the team worked tirelessly. Logan found himself reflecting on the journey. From the frozen forest to this warm clinic. From desperation to cautious optimism. The experience had rekindled something within him. A belief in resilience, in second chances. One evening, Dr. Matthews pulled Logan aside. we're seeing improvements. The dog's responding well to treatment. If this continues, he could be up and walking soon. Relief washed over Logan like a wave. That's good news. It is, the vet agreed. But he'll need a safe, loving home after discharge. Someone patient and understanding. Logan's gaze drifted to Sarah, then to the others. The unspoken connection between them was clear. They had all been part of this dog's fight for survival. Later that night, Logan sat alone by the window, the city lights twinkling in the distance. His thoughts were heavy with memories. Missions passed, losses endured, and the unexpected path that had led him here. This dog's survival was a testament to endurance, but also to the power of compassion and teamwork. The next morning, a tentative wag of the dog's tail greeted the group. It was a small gesture, but one that spoke volumes, a symbol of hope reborn. Mark smiled broadly. Looks like he's ready for the next step. Logan's eyes shone with quiet determination. We'll see it through, together. As the dog took its first unsteady steps, supported by the gentle hands of the veterinary team, the room filled with a sense of triumph. The struggle against nature's harshness was far from over, but this moment was a victory, a beacon of resilience and renewal. Outside, the world remained cold and vast. But inside the clinic, a fragile family had formed. Bound by shared hardship and unwavering hope, they stood ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Logan watched the dog walk, a silent promise in his heart. To protect, to heal, and to never give up on those who fought to survive. The morning sun filtered gently through the clinic's large windows, casting a soft golden light over the room where the dog rested on a cozy bed. Its breathing was steady now, eyes bright with the spark of renewed life. The once fragile creature had grown stronger each day, the bond forged in adversity blossoming into something resilient and hopeful. Around the dog, the group gathered, their faces marked with relief and quiet joy. Logan stood near the window, watching the world awaken beyond the glass. The snow-covered streets, children bundled in winter coats, and the first hint of spring whispers in the crisp air. For the first time in months, a sense of peace settled over him, mingling with the satisfaction of a mission fulfilled and a life saved. Sarah approached quietly, her eyes reflecting the warmth of the morning. He's come so far. I never imagined we'd see this day. Logan nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. Neither did I. But he's tougher than any of us gave him credit for. Mark entered with a small box of supplies, setting it gently on the table. Vet says he's ready for discharge soon. We've got a plan for what comes next. Lisa looked around at the group, a hopeful gleam in her eyes. Who's going to take him? He deserves a good home. The question hung in the air, a challenge and an opportunity intertwined. Logan glanced at the dog, whose tail thumped softly against the bed, as if sensing the conversation. I'm not just going to leave him behind, Logan said quietly. He's been through too much. I'll take him. The others exchanged looks, a mix of surprise and approval. Sarah stepped forward. That makes sense. You've been his guardian through this entire journey. Logan's gaze drifted to the window once more, the weight of the past lifting slightly. He's more than a survivor. He's a symbol of hope. And maybe he's a part of my own healing. The group smiled, the room filled with a shared sense of purpose and new beginnings. Over the next few days, preparations were made. The dog's medical needs were addressed, and Logan worked with the veterinary staff to ensure a smooth transition back to life beyond the clinic. The small cabin he called home was transformed into a welcoming space, ready to embrace the newest member of his quiet wilderness world. On the day of discharge, the group accompanied the dog out of the clinic. Its steps were steady, its eyes bright with curiosity and trust. Logan carried a leash in one hand and a sturdy pack in the other, a partner ready to embark on a new chapter. As they stepped into the crisp morning air, Kodiak, named for the rugged strength he embodied, looked up at Logan, tail wagging gently. The bond between man and dog was palpable, a testament to resilience and the power of compassion. The journey back to the cabin was filled with quiet conversation and laughter, the weight of past hardships giving way to the promise of tomorrow. Logan felt a familiar peace settle within, a feeling he had long sought but rarely found. That evening, under a sky blanketed with stars, Logan and Kodiak sat side by the fire. The crackling flames painted their faces with a warm glow, shadows dancing in rhythm with the night. Logan reached down, stroking Kodiak's thick fur. "We made it, buddy. Together." Kodiak leaned into the touch, eyes soft and trusting. In that moment, the wilderness no longer felt like a place of solitude, but a home filled with hope and new beginnings. The story of their rescue, of survival against the odds, would remain etched in their hearts forever. But more than that, it was a story of connection, healing, and the quiet strength found in the bonds between man and animal. As the fire flickered and the night deepened, Logan looked out over the darkened forest, a smile playing on his lips. The future was uncertain, as it always is in the wild. But with Kodiak by his side, it was a future filled with promise. In the vast, untamed wilderness, they had found not just survival, but a home. And in that home, a new beginning awaited.